Hey there everybody! Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make DIY confetti with your Cricut machine. The supplies are very simple for this project. You'll just need some Cricut party foil, or you can use cardstock. You'll also need a Cricut machine. You'll need a green standard Cricut mat. You'll need a straight cutter, which is optional, and you may also want a variety of sequins in complementary colors to the party foil you choose, and you'll need a cup or a dish in order to mix your confetti together. To start, I'm going to show you how you can type out personalized words in Design Space and how you can add these personalized details, names, and phrases and such by using the software inside of Design Space. So let's head over there and get started. So confetti is really versatile because you can create it basically any way you want. You just need to think about the image that you're using, and it's simple enough that it can be cut in a small, detailed way with your machine. And you can add a lot of custom details like specific words or names. My daughter is going to be 6 next week, and I thought it would be cute to add in a little phrase that says 6 sweet and sassy. So I have just typed that out here in Design Space, and I can show you how I did that here in just a minute. You can also bring in any other details you want to. So you can search Cricut images, or you can upload your own images like this little gift box, hearts. I made these little square pieces here, and these other little confetti-like pieces that I'm going to be cutting out in Cricut Party Foil. As promised, I'm going to show you how I weld my text together and what the best fonts are to use when you're trying to make a custom name or phrase text to turn into confetti. So I'm going to grab my text tool that's over here to the left hand side, and I'm going to type out what I want, which for me is going to be 6 sweet and sassy. And you can of course say whatever you want. It could be your child's name or whoever's birthday it might be, or party or event, whatever it might be. Maybe someone's getting married and you want to put their names together. Your font will be whatever the last font is that you selected, or it might be the Cricut default font. So you'll want to go ahead and change that if you don't like the font that you currently have, and you can change that in the font edit bar here. I'm happy with the one that I have here. This is called Cherry Cordial, and you can find it online, and I've just selected it from my system fonts here in Cricut Design Space. And we just need to make a few edits here to make this font work. So first thing is, when you're choosing a font, you want to be mindful that you're not choosing anything that is such an intricate script font that it's not going to cut out well on the Cricut Party Foil or cardstock if you're using cardstock. So I'm using a thicker script font here, and that's just something you want to pay attention to, so just think about that. I highly recommend using a cursive or script font though, because you will be able to connect the letters a lot easier together, and it will save you a lot of headache, and the words will look a little bit more easy to read. So once you've picked your font and typed out your words, you're going to want to need to arrange your letters a little closer together. So I'm going to do that up here in letter spacing. I'm just going to type at 0 and see where it's at from there. Needs to come down a little bit more, so you can either type in or use the arrows here. And I'm just going to keep moving it in until the letters are touching as if they would naturally if I was writing this on a paper. There we go. Oh, maybe a little too far. There we go. Okay, now we need to work with this space between the lines here. So while the text is selected, I'm going to go to Advanced, and I'm going to ungroup the lines. And now each line here can be separated from the other one. And you can also ungroup letters if you want, but that's only if you really need to play around with getting your letters to overlap in a certain way. I did not need to do that here, so that did not pertain to this tutorial. So what I'm going to do next here is I'm going to select my top word, and I'm going to select my and sign, and I'm going to bring it up, and I'm just going to start playing with the placement of this. So you just want to think about, okay, how can I connect these together, and how can I make sure that the words are still very legible and easily understood. Now, if you just wanted to do, like, for example, sweet and sassy and connect it here with the and sign, you could just do that, and you could cut out 6 separately, and you'd have a piece of confetti that says, you know, the age, and then the other one, sweet and sassy. I'm going to connect all 3 of these together. I'm going to enlarge the word 6 here, and I'm going to have it kind of sitting right on top of the word sweet. It's where you can see the S's are barely touching and the X and the E's are barely touching, so that those will connect well together. And I feel like that having just the and sign connect the sweet and the sassy could be a little fragile on the confetti, so I'm going to add some additional elements here. I'm going to add a heart from the shapes panel, and this is just going to give it a little bit of extra personality as well as extra support to the connection of the words, and it also kind of fills out any awkward spaces. So I am going to scale, you just play with it and scale it until you're happy with the size and the placement. So there's one heart for me. I feel like it could be a little bit smaller. And this is going to depend on what your words end up looking like. You may not need to do any of this. Your words might come together perfectly, and you may not need to add any additional details to help connect the words if you're wanting to do something like this. Or if you're just doing a single word or a single name, then you wouldn't even need to worry about this. But I'm showing you the most advanced way of doing this so that you can do it simply or you can do it more advanced. Alright, and it can also be helpful to change this maybe to a color that you're going to be using. Alright, so I can clearly read these words. I don't feel like they're hard to read or and here's something else I want to show you. So right here my S is touching the other S really well, but the I and the X are kind of floating, but if I could move those two down just a little bit, it would be perfect. So this is where using that ungroup to letters could be useful. You just want to be mindful of what you're doing. So like I think I'm gonna try and see if I can get the X to just move a little bit. Okay, so now I have my X still touching the I, but the X is now also touching the T and barely touching the E. So when I weld it, it should come together. Now we have an I here, and this little piece would be awkwardly floating. So it might be a good idea for me to duplicate another heart and use that as the dot of the I. I feel like it would also go with the theme better, and it would put 3 hearts on this piece, and I think things always look better in 3s. So I think this could be a good option. If you're doing an I, you could do a heart or something else that would allow you to connect it. Okay, there we go. So 6, sweet, and sassy. All right, now the next part is going to be to weld this and then size them. First and foremost, you cannot undo welding once you've saved and closed out a project. So I highly, highly recommend that you go ahead and duplicate a copy before you weld. Move it over to the side, group it together, and then use the little eye tool in the layers panel and hide it, so that way if you ever want to make edits to it again, you don't have to start from the beginning. You can just bring that grouped unwelded copy back onto your canvas and make edits. I'm going to select all these pieces now and use the weld tool in the bottom left side of my layers panel. Now the very last thing we need to do is we need to scale this to our preference and then duplicate it a bunch of times. I don't recommend going much smaller than 1/2 inch for something like this because you're dealing with a lot of curves. I'm going to cut mine out just slightly under 1 inch high to see how I like it. So I'm going to do like 0.8 by 0.7. And I'm just going to duplicate this a bunch of times and then align it so that I can maximize my material. And for something like this text, you want it to be more the accent of the confetti. That's why I showed you all those other little pieces that you could mix in with this at the beginning of the video. So don't feel like you need to cut a ton of these, like maybe a couple dozen at most. I'm going to center this vertically and space these out. Okay, so there we go. You can use your attach tool also if you don't want this to move on you when you go to the cut screen. Otherwise, Cricut will redistribute this as it sees fit. And once you go to that Make It screen, you just want to select party foil if that's what you're using. They have that under custom settings. You could also do this with cardstock or glitter cardstock. And then we're going to go ahead and cut our confetti out here. So like I said, I'm using Cricut Party Foil here, and they have it in a variety of colors, so you can choose whatever color palette you prefer. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to want to cut it down to size. I like to use a straight cutter for things like the Party Foil or my vinyl when I'm cutting on my Cricut machine because it helps eliminate waste, keeps those edges straight, and it's just a little bit more of a cleaner process. So once I cut a little bit of the Party Foil off, I'm going to place it onto my standard grip green mat. You should have your design loaded and ready to go, and you're going to load your machine and let it cut. I've noticed with the Party Foil that it can be helpful to set it to more pressure on the cut screen instead of the default pressure. Sometimes it doesn't cut all the way through, and even when you do that, you'll notice when you unload your mat that you might need to gently kind of play with the Party Foil to get everything to loosen. I'm lifting it away here, and you're gonna have to probably kind of weed using your fingers a little bit depending on how intricate your design was. So this is my 6 Sweet and Sassy design here, and I'm just kind of picking out some of the little pieces that didn't come off when I lifted it from the mat. Of course, this is just one of my designs that I'm going to be mixing into my confetti. This is more the accent design here. You might have to work out some of those little pieces of Party Foil. It may not be very difficult depending on your design. Mine was a little bit more intricate. And I'm going to repeat this now with some of those other cuts that I showed you in Design Space. So I'm using some purple here and blue and golds to cut out those little squares and hearts and other little designs as more of the filler part of the confetti. And so you'll repeat this process for any of the different colors you want to use in Party Foil. Of course, you can also use cardstock for this if you prefer. As you can see, I'm lifting my Party Foil up here. Some of my pieces are sticking, but they still cut all the way through just fine. I just sort of have to use my fingers to wiggle them out. So if you're using Party Foil and that happens to you, don't stress. You just need to sort of play with it for a second and loosen the design, and it'll come right out. And make sure you have a dish nearby or something that you're collecting all your confetti in, so you can assess how much you have. I'm making just a small portion of confetti here, but of course you can make a lot, and you can of course make them in lots of different designs. Also notice that I'm using my Cricut scraper tool here to very gently push all of the confetti off of the mat. It can get a little cumbersome trying to actually pick each piece up with your finger, especially if you don't have fingernails, and even with fingernails it's not very easy. So I just gently push it off the mat using that scraper tool and then gather it and place it in a nearby dish or cup or whatever it is that you would like to store your confetti in. And I want to show you a quick hack here. You can very easily put more than one color of Party Foil on your Cricut mat. When you're on your cut screen, just make sure that you move the designs so that they're placed within the center of each of these colors so they're not overlapping on the line transition area of the colors. But I actually managed to cut 3 different colors at once. So this is a really clever way of maximizing your mat space as well as saving yourself a little bit of time of coming back and forth and loading your mat for each individual color. So this is a great hack if you're kind of in a hurry and you're doing a lot of different colors, so I recommend giving it a try. It worked out pretty well for me. I unloaded my mat, and each of my designs that I had moved over each of the portion of the mat on the cut screen in Design Space came out just fine. They're sticking to my Party Foil again a little bit. I'm just going to take each of these pieces and wiggle out any pieces that did not stick originally on the mat, and then I'll use my Cricut scraper tool again to pile all of them off of the mat to the side in my dish. And finally, I'm going to gather all of that confetti together, and I have a little plastic container here that I've been collecting it all in. And one last thing I like to do to just add a little extra filler to the confetti is to buy some sequins in complementary colors to whatever party foil you're using, and to mix a little bit of that into all the designs you've cut out with the party foil. It's a great way to add a different texture, a different size, a size that would be maybe a little difficult to cut out on the Cricut machine because of how tiny sequins can be. And it just adds, it fills your dish up a lot quicker. So again, if you're wanting a lot of texture, variety, and you don't want to have to cut every single piece of confetti out on your Cricut machine, you just want the accent pieces, then mix in some of that sequins that you can find online in craft stores, and that's a great way to fill your confetti container up a lot faster. So you can see our confetti turned out really cute here. I'm going to show you a close-up image of it here in just a second. I hope you enjoyed this project. I really love sharing it with you. I think it's a great way and a very simple way to personalize something for a special event or some party decor.